Now, going back to what Donald started mentioning, and this is something that also something we realized. So, the statistics says construction contributes roughly around 11% of greenhouse gases, which is huge compared to so many other things that gets blamed so much more for it. And the second amazing thing that I noticed when we were doing some research was 20% of city municipal solid waste are actually construction related, and that's a huge number to think of it, right? I mean, so, in this line, let me bring up set up information that we found from doing several research in the industry. So we pulled together various papers, some out of Malaysia, some out of India, some out of Turkey, some out of MIT. And these are the common causes of construction waste that was mentioned. So obviously this relates to the waste of materials and labor, of course, connected with that. But what was surprising to find out that a lot of these are actually not directly correlated to the material management and material procurement. In fact, like some of you brought up, design was a big challenge. In fact, one of the biggest cause of rework and damage and changing, like demolishing and redoing things is a lot of time this paper plans and paper drawings that the contractor is working on, and then someone does the inspection and says, hey, that's not the latest version of it, and there is something else. Or sometime they have questions, maybe there's not enough details on the plan, and they go ahead and build whatever they could understand, and just later on someone sees it in inspection, and whoever's mistake it may be attributed to, but it gets demolished and redone again. And similarly, there's been so many other areas, like the methodologies related to the construction has been brought up several times, and the resource, like I mean, like I'll go back to that same safety and health related. One accident can throw the entire project off by so much, and cost and all kind of things, right? So maybe these are the data and these are the statistics that is mentioned. And I know this is like a broad number. When you are working manual, it would be something from someone working on a 4D BIM and other sophisticated uh, project management teams, right? So, but let me start with Sri. Among these four areas, which all do you see have the biggest challenges in the projects that you have been involved with, and where do you see the technologies bringing this? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
was saying all four, perhaps. Only the extent varies from one to another, and I can briefly touch on all four. I mean, when we look at design documentation, the real challenge is, if the project is not conceived in 3D environment, then there's a huge clash issues, especially when it comes to MEP and other, service lines coming into play. And what we do now with in very few projects, by the way, where it's all on BIM, 100%. So we do zero clash, like we did for the new terminal of Istanbul, which was the largest terminal, zero clash. So even people had iPad, contractors, guys had iPad on the site, and there were no physical drawings. So that was the level at which the work was executed. So this is one challenge. So there's a lot of design rework, and because there's a design rework, all the material procurement gets disturbed. Entire value chain system gets disturbed. When it comes to construction methodology and planning, we often suggest the contractor not to push the construction methodology to the other side, which means to the designers, because they have the equipment and they keep changing the equipments, and the system to save money. I mean, and it has to be realistic, construction methodology part, and that is also to go in sync with the environmental aspects, for example, like what Donald touched. This is very important, and because one type of methodology could lead to a lot of dust and other things, and as the other type could be very environment friendly. So that has to come from as a norm, and that gets connected to the safety also, the hazards. When it comes to resource management, I mean, the people are for us the biggest resources, because all the tools, they're like, we are talking of going digital. If people are not competent enough or trained enough to handle these tools, it becomes a challenge. So people first, and besides that, other resources are more or less fixed. Like steel is, once you decide this is the, I mean, it comes to material, but I do not know what you have here. uh, okay, workplace safety, and I have covered that more or less. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about this for quite some time, but I just want to touch the important
Yes.
topics so that others have to add.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Thank you very much. Let's hear from Hanson's point of view. I mean, how do you see this? This is all related to material, and some of the studies we came across, depending on the industry, talks about the cost of the project or the percentage cost of the project that is directly attributed to material is anywhere from 50 up to 70%, depending on the various factors. And this is a huge area. In fact, from last 30 or so interviews across Philippines, India, and Singapore, our finding was one of the main thing that most companies, contractors, and owners, well, mostly contractors, brought up was material management was their biggest challenge. And they did not mention the waste part of it. The waste part of the material came up once we started digging more into it. But they all said that anywhere from 10% or more of the total project cost they believe goes in some or other form of material and related waste. And if they would be able to manage it better, I mean, some of them bring up things like even pilferage and others, but others said, okay, even if not pilferage, there's just so many ways materials goes to waste. What has been your experience, maybe if I can ask?
I think when it comes to the word waste, it's a matter of understanding the term on how contractors see it. Because the way I see it when it comes to waste is, if, for example, there's a change order or a variation order, and then you cannot file a price for it, then I think that's considered waste. But if the client
Yeah.
paid for it, for me, it doesn't really matter if it's really a waste. And then we just try our best to be able to recycle it before really throwing it off, because it's still money saved. So, but the way I see it, it's the first two. It's the material management and procurement and design documentation, especially when clients are very, especially in today's time where the client is not much going on site, and then when they come to site, they have a lot of changes or change requests, and the problem is, once you have this kind of motivation on your workers, and then they're streamlined already on a certain task, and then you need to hold off because there's going to be a change order, then it goes back to materials and management and procurement, and slightly more into the resource management. But I would say it's more into the materials, because we need to redestroy the material, and then we need to purchase the new material as soon as possible, and then recompute the timelines and everything. So I strongly believe on the resource management and procurement would be one of the
Thank
major
you.
problems.
Thank you. Donald, would you be able to share some thoughts from your experience on this area?
Well, I can't really share many thoughts about the experience of directly managing a construction project and measuring its effectiveness, but these things are very relatable to my core industry of restaurants. With the materials management and procurement, in any half well run business, large or small these days, the management will know what their cost of sales will be, as in the cost of the food that it takes to make a dish. And success in that respect is the difference between the theoretical and the actual cost. So you buy in 10 cauliflowers and you sell the equivalent of 10 cauliflowers minus the accounted for waste of the leaves on the outside, then that's success. But if you've only sold and got the income in for 8 of them, and 2 have gone AWOL for whatever reason, that's where you need to focus then your attention to fix that problem. And materials management, I don't think I'm being naive here. I can't see it as being much different. You draw up a project, you know that you're going to need X amount of concrete, wood, nails, etc., and success is getting the actual amount used as close to the theoretical as possible. The cost is
Yes.
actually not the measurement, the cost is the outcome, because you may not be able to control the cost, but you can control the quantity. And I think getting to that point will be massively beneficial. Money is emotive, but the material itself is much less so, and that's really what you're measuring. The cost
True.
comes as a consequence. The other
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
um,
Go
as a
ahead. Go
layman
ahead. Go ahead.
who was happily basically invited to leave my engineering drawing classes when I was 14 and never darkened the doorstep again. I've always found it very strange that I've signed off in multi-million projects and looking at drawings and things. I'd like to go back and see my teachers. But to have drawings done in a very readable form that don't come in massive sheets of paper with umpteen notations, and really you've got to work very hard to make sure that you're looking at the latest iteration. If that's digitized, if there's even a screen in a building site where you can take it from an iPad and put it onto a screen and show it in 3D, as an operator, that would give me a much better way of saying, yeah, I like this design is going to work, or this isn't practical. You can visualize it better. Now that's not exactly what Steer is about, but it's all part of the overall digitization of the industry, which is unbelievably so far behind. 20 years
In,
ago, we had cash registers effectively. You might get you get an itemized product mix of what you sold. You advertised in TVs, newspapers, radio, a real hit and hope thing. Nowadays, you know your customers' habits far better than they do. You can
yeah.
directly target people with the right kind of offers, and you've got down this level of detail about your business, from the location to the construction, or not the construction, from the location to the costs of running it, even the schedules. As a restaurant manager, I used to take 2 or 3 hours every week to put together the staff rotas. And now it's just all done. It's all on digital format. It's all sent out to folks' mobiles phones. You can change schedules or have schedules changed. It's a light years away from where I'm really understanding an awful lot of the construction industry is at, and the efficiencies that bring is phenomenal.